Welcome to the Creative Chats podcast with Mike Brennan. Well, welcome, friends, to another episode of Creative Chats. It's the podcast for artists, makers, and content creators where we talk about creativity, the creative process, and story. I'm your host, Mike Brennan. You can check out some of my work over on mikebrennan.me, and I'd love to connect with you there. There's also some free resources there that I have created just for you in mind, because I want to see you create. And I believe that when you create, everyone wins. You win, the people around you win. And so to create the things that are happening inside your brain, to get them out and get them bringing value to the people around you, that's where it's at. I've created resources called Daily Creative Habit. You can sign up for the email newsletter that goes out once a week. It is free, and it is just jam-packed with prompts that give you some ideas if you're looking to get back in touch with your creativity, but you're really not sure what that can look like. You need some guidance. Also, I look to give you some inspiration, some practical tips on just creating and marketing and getting your stuff out and into the world. And so I would love for you to go to dailycreativehabit.com. That'll bring a direct page right to some of those resources, along with a Daily Creative Habit 90-day journal that I've created that will take you on an experience where you can set intention and then take action and track and measure your progress along the way. So you can know if you're actually showing up and doing things, as opposed to, did I create something recently? I don't really know. It's a little too ethereal. This gives you some practical, measurable steps to be able to employ. Now, today, I get to sit down with a local friend, Beth Inglish. I am so excited about this episode. I mean, I love all my episodes, of course. They're all my children, right? But this episode, really, truly appreciate Beth's time and ability to convey her story, her experiences, to share with you today. She is someone who I have been continuing to get to know locally here in the Nashville area. She has the amazing ability to gather fellow creatives into a room and get them connecting with each other, getting them connecting with her. She's very transparent and shares her journey, her story, her process, and looks to help people show up to create as well. And so we have a lot of shared values and experiences. And we talk a lot about her art making, what that's looked like over the years, her speaking, because she's a speaker as well, very gifted and talented in helping other people, again, step into their creativity. And I just love her perspective on showing up, creating some things, finding the right people, pivoting, and also having strategy be at work in the creation process. Because so many times we get in our own way, and sometimes we don't think about who's going to interact with what we're creating and how can we best show up for them and where are they hanging out. And so not just the creation, but also the marketing, if you will, of what it is that we create, making sure that those things are aligned and that they are working for us, not against us. So many great nuggets of wisdom in this episode. Be sure to take notes and enjoy connecting with Beth as well. At the end of the episode, we give some ways that you can connect with Beth. And I really, truly encourage you to do so, even if you're not local to the Nashville area. She will be a tremendous resource for you as well. So without further ado, here is my creative chat with Beth Inglish. Well, Beth, welcome to the Creative Chats podcast. Thanks so much for being here today. I'm excited about this.
Me too. Me too.
So I love that when I got here to Nashville, you were the person who was like, hey, I am doing things with creative people. And I was like, oh, this is my person. Like, she gets me, and she's making events happen and helping me get connected in a local community. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really, truly appreciate that. And I'm also excited to bring your story and just all the things that you do to the people who aren't local here, who listen to this podcast, and expose them to just what you do and how you do it and all the things that make you Beth. So thank you.
I'll try.
Yes.
Let's go.
So,
I'm excited too.
Yeah. So you are multi creative. You are someone who is passionate about just engaging with your creativity in ways that help other people show up and help them be the best versions of themselves too. And so, I knew from the get go that we had some similarities and things as far as interests and values and experiences. I would love to know, where did creativity start for you? Like, what did that look like for you when you were a kid? And how did you know that you were creative?
Gosh, I can't remember a time when I wasn't creating something. I must have started noodling around on the piano since I was could walk. My dad was a musician and a songwriter for as a hobby, not as a career. And so we had a room that was dedicated to music. So it was the piano room. It's where I would go and play piano and learn. And eventually I did get into piano lessons when I was 8 years old. So that really was a lot of fun. I was always coloring. I would color on the insides of the cabinet doors. So, like, oh, no one's going to see this. I can do this. I was doing fun projects at church and at home, just arts and crafts, things like that. And I just loved it. I remember a time in kindergarten, actually, we had to draw a picture based on a book we read. And I think that it was a pretty good picture for a 5 year old. And I impressed myself. And I think I impressed my mom. It was just very evident early on that I loved drawing, I loved color and expression. I was in dance class since I was 3 years old. So I was always dancing. Music was a huge part of our life growing up, and crafts, sewing. My grandma taught me how to sew when I was 5. And so there was always something to create with my hands. And I never let that go. And I still live that way today.
Yeah, yeah. And so did that then end up informing you as far as like a career path, education path? What did that part look like?
Not at all. It was not really encouraged to go into the arts. It was just something you did. Looking at my dad, it was just a hobby that he did, and no one around me was doing that sort of thing. So I went to business school because it seemed like a smart choice. I was good at leading. In high school, I was always in a club, president of a club, doing things for those groups. And yeah, so I thought, well, I guess I'm good at this leadership thing. And I went to business school. But it wasn't until business school or until college, that I started taking more formal classes. I was actually a costume designer in the theater school when I was attending college, because a friend of mine saw that I had talent because I showed her some of the things I had made, that I had sewn, and some of the costumes that I had created because I danced for 15 years. So I had a big show every year, which is why I love naturally being on stage. Running out on a big empty stage seems very comfortable for me. So I started drawing in the theater school and those classes, and that kind of led me into making art and thinking of myself as an artist. But I did eventually just graduate with a undergrad in business. So it wasn't until later that I decided that being an artist was something that I felt like I needed to go after.
And was that like a natural thing for you to be able to accept the kind of title or category of artist? Because I know a lot of people struggle with that and think, well, I'm not, a real artist. I mean, I even had that in my own journey of like going, well, I could be a designer, but I don't know, a real artist, because we tend to have this picture in our head what we think that looks like, when maybe it's a real artist makes a full-time living off of their art, or has certain accolades, or has certain training, or whatever that is. Like, did you ever struggle with that piece, or was it just, no, you know what, I know I'm an artist because of all these things I've done, it's just so close to me?
I did struggle with that because I'm a normal human being.
Yeah.
We all have those self-doubt, insecurities that creep in, and I think we can define the term a lot of different ways, and people are going to have different definitions for it all across the board, but you have to understand, what does it mean for you to be an artist? Because no, I don't think that you have to make a full-time living at art to be an artist. I think that we are all born as creators, and it's something that we either adopt do in our lives, or maybe it's something that we don't necessarily nurture. It's just like anything. When you nurture something within yourself, you're going to see it grow. And when you don't nurture it, you're not going to see it grow. And that doesn't mean that we're not all creative beings born to create and make things with our hands. We can use our creativity in lots of different ways. And one of the hardest parts that I have learned is getting that mindset out of people that they think they have to be like this bohemian hippie painter to be an artist or to be creative. And I try so hard to help people see the creative side inside of themselves, like that this is all part of who we are. But I'm telling you, the world does not want to nurture artists. The systems that are built around us as people are not nurturing for those who are artists. It seems very difficult. And one thing I have learned from leading thousands of artists in an artist community is that our mindset stinks like half the time or most of the time. Like, if you can get past that crummy mindset of self-doubt, then the world is yours. Like, you can create and you can do anything and you can build and collaborate. But it's that mindset that I think holds down a lot of artists that you see stop them from taking that next step forward. And so calling yourself as an artist is one of the most important steps that you can take forward, to claim that for yourself, because it is a powerful thing to be an artist and to have a voice and to be self-expressed. But if you don't believe in your voice, then no one else will. So you have to believe in yourself first before you can expect anyone else. I mean, there are those special souls in our life that see those gifts inside of us that say, hey, I noticed this about you and this is really cool and you should nurture that. Or, we have to depend on sometimes those people to pour that light into us so that we can claim it for ourselves. I don't
Yeah.
see myself the same way everybody else sees me. I see myself through my own lens of my entire life. It's a slow process of adjusting how we see ourselves, but it is a worthy journey, because if we can see ourselves with the most hopeful, most optimistic, most possibility, then I think we're truly living into our creativity. It's not about just what we create. It's about how we create ourselves and we see ourselves in our journey in this life. So it
Yeah.
is a declaration to say, I am an artist. And that is really the first step. And once you get past that, I feel like it's a lot easier. So for those of you listening or watching, if you struggle with calling yourself an artist, just know that you are. And just
Yeah.
accept that and call yourself that. And don't listen to anyone who says that you're not. Keep living into your own truth. That's all we can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. There's so much in there, even with the self work, and certainly that's not exclusive to creatives or artists, but I think so much of that, like you said, is dependent on like what happens with what we make, how we see ourselves, how we put ourselves out there, and if we're not working on ourselves, if we're not self validating and loving ourselves well, then we're not going to be able to show up to really tap into the stuff that I think we can make that is really our voice and the thing that is close to who we are. We may dance around that for a really long time. And the other thing is not being able to really have agency over yourself and your journey, because then it's always outward looking. It's always like, if I get this opportunity, then that'll validate me enough. And then I'll feel good about my work. Then I'll feel good about myself as a creative person. Or if somebody buys something, or if I have a certain amount of sales each month, or if I have, and all these external validators that can really throw us off track and cause us to really put ourselves in a cage where we're not showing up the way that we could and should be for ourselves, and experiencing the freedom, I think, that comes when you've really decided to do the hard work inside, right? I mean, has that been your experience too? Does that resonate with you?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I spent years and years trying to validate myself as an artist through sales or through my relationships or through other, what people thought of my work. So I was inherently like creating for a market instead of just creating my own sort of expression. And I kept seeing these visions of things I should be making, because I see visions. That's how sort of I'm led through my artistic life, is I get visions or hear not audible voices, but when my intuition feels strongly directs me. And yeah, when you're not being authentic to your voice. And I didn't like the way that felt. And I sold art. That was something that I did, but I sold more art when I was staying true to my own voice and vision. And that was the most surprising because I was like, seriously, people are gonna want to buy this art that I'm making that feels unmarketable, but it is the most authentically marketable art that I could make for myself. So that was a surprise. It just showed me how valuable it is to really follow your vision, even though it may not be clear where you're moving into. It's just do the next step, and it'll keep evolving over time. And it's a beautiful thing to see yourself develop as an artist. And I think, technical skill is one thing, but artistic vision is another. And so we have to be true to our artistic vision and keep honing in on those technical skills. I didn't know how to paint when I decided I was going to be a painter. So it's like, oh, how do I do this? And I just practice and practice and practice. And I haven't actually painted in a long time because I've been so focused on speaking. And so, but then I'll pick up a paintbrush and I'll be like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. It's pretty cool. And I'll like
Yes.
work with my mom on a project and I'll be like, remember, I am a professional artist. And, my family doesn't really know me as a professional artist because they only know me as the kid that I was from, 0 to 18. And so I have to remind my mom when I'm like repainting some furniture or helping around the house with something that I actually am really good at this, not to worry. So, um, yeah, we all go through those periods of self doubt and disbelief and questioning ourselves. And I think, we could look at that two ways. One way that's going to limit us and block us, or another way is, I'm curious about this. Why is this coming up?
Yeah.
Where is the root of this? And why is it deciding to, try to take up space in my mind right now? Maybe I need to express this through my art as a way to release it. And so I really used art making as a way to express the confusing things happening inside my spirit, as a way to release those things and to gain perspective, because I will definitely step back from a painting I'm working on and look at it and think, what is it trying to tell me? What is this saying? And of course, my intuition is always saying, it says this and it says that. And I learn a lot just by being in the process of creating art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a form of self-care
Mm-hmm.
and meaning making. And, I journal a lot. And I've journaled since I was probably 18 years old when somebody first introduced me to the idea of kind of giving me a method to do it. And that process of getting things out and getting it on a page and then making sense of some things, as opposed to it just kind of all floating inside of you and being this like sea of chaos, right? That is certainly one way of doing it with written word. And it's a different experience when I approach something with visual art and using colors, using brushstrokes, or using symbols or different elements. And yet it's still this sense of I'm making meaning, I'm giving purpose to something, whether that's an emotion, an experience, like you said, something that you see in your mind where you're like, I see this vision of something I want to become a reality. And it gives you the place to work that out. And to not do that, I think that can certainly cause a frustration, right? When you're not creating, there's this idea of you're not really being who you are to be, who you were created to be. I know for me, when I walked away from my creativity for 10 years, that's exactly what happened to me. I started to shrivel up and then suffered from depression. I underestimated the power of creativity in my own life, not just as a career, but as an agent of hope and understanding and meaning making and self-love and care, right? What have you learned about creativity and self-expression, and what happens when you don't engage with that?
Well, I'm my most joyful self when I am creating, whether
Mm-hmm.
that's writing, whether that's painting, writing music, performing music, singing, dancing. I try to live a creative life in all that I do. It comes through in my cooking. It comes through in the way that I live in my home, in my space every day. Is always, I just try to live life as looking at, oh, how can I make this more beautiful? How can I make this more meaningful? How can I turn this experience into something that I'm going to remember forever? So it's so important that it's a part of, like, I'm creating intentional memories and meaningfulness every day, whether however I'm creating or whatever output is being expressed. Even if it's like a conversation, feeling empowered to express exactly what's on my heart and not shut down. So, yeah, for me, creating was definitely healing and therapeutic. I am a trauma survivor of childhood sexual abuse. I do create as a way to express joy because I want the energy of joy to be around me, because I have found that the only way I was ever going to find joy is if I made joy familiar in my neurology. And so if my neurology says, oh, you're no good, or there's shame there, it's like, okay, that's what the wiring is. But how do I rewire that? And the only thing that helped was to make intentional actions towards experiencing joy so that I am rewiring my brain for joy. And that was amazing. Painting was a part of that. Exploring out in the woods was a part of that. Just feeling just like I could go and create joy, not just for myself, but for the people around me, which is why I love building community and hosting events, because the more that we engage in joyful activities, the more we are telling our brain what we want to be familiar in our lives, regardless of the fear or the depression or the shame or all those things. Yes, I understand those can coexist with joy. And it's a slow transition into feeling more joy when we are more intentional about it. So that is
Yeah.
why I create. That is why I do all the things that I do, because I want to live a great, joyful life. I want the latter part of my life to look completely different than the beginning part of my life, where I was consumed with shame and fear. And I don't want to live that way anymore. So creating intentional acts of joy every single day is how I stay resilient and maintain regardless of the challenges I face, because we will face challenges.
Mhm.
But it's how do we remain joyful and grounded in peace amidst all the chaos around us? And that is challenging, but we do have a choice. And that's kind of what my keynote is all about, is how do we look at the choices we make and decide whether or not they're the right choices for us? Are they ultimately guiding us into a direction that we want to be in? And really taking a look at that from a deeper level. And this is why I share these stories and why I share my own vulnerable experiences, because I know that they make a lasting impact on the audience to think about their own joy, their own creativity, and the future of their life and how they want to create that.
Mhm.
Oh, it feels good to just be self expressed.
Yes, yes. That is so powerful. And I love this picture of you having basically life as your canvas and you being able to dip into moments and have different experiences day to day, and to be in this very kind of fluid type of relationship with creativity, where it's not just like I'm doing this painting, and if this painting doesn't turn out well or doesn't match my vision, then I'm going to be like kind of like really disappointed and feel bad about myself, feel bad about my skills or whatever. It's so much bigger than that. What you're describing is really this creative life that touches everything that you come in contact with. And I love that you've identified that joy is like your paint. It's the thing that you're applying to every situation wherever you are and whoever you're talking with. That's such a beautiful picture. So thank you for articulating that. And I hope that that challenges others to really dig deep to think, what is it that's underneath what I'm doing? Like, what is
Mm-hmm.
the driving motivation? What's my why, if you will? That's a lot of times we talk about it in those terms. But
Well,
having identified that, that's huge. Yeah.
Well, and as a marketer, I knew that it was important to be able to communicate why I do what I do with my work so that it would share a story and connect with the audience. That is the whole motivation behind it. And it was like, how do I express what it is I really want to do? And I know I've painted small paintings, medium-sized paintings, this and that, these kinds of styles, representational, non-representational. And I have learned, why am I doing any of this work unless I'm really, truly just in love with it? So, my favorite way of painting is a full body experience. I like to be dancing. I like to be moving. I like to be upright. I don't want to be sitting down. I want to have space, and I want the canvas to be a reflection of that experience that I'm having in my own body.
Mm.
And that's how I want to paint. And if that is a great fit for your office or your home or whatever, then amazing, let's do it. I've partnered with lots of great people and commercial spaces and private collectors to have artwork just like this. And so it makes it fun for me, because who wants to do a project you don't love? You just start feeling bad about it the entire time you're working on it. Like, I really wish I wouldn't have said yes to this. Like,
Mm.
say yes to the things you want to say yes to, and create an offer that you're so excited to get out there and sell, And that's the thing I
Yeah.
realized was the biggest challenge for artists, not seeing any forward movement or momentum in their work or their business, was that they're not creating enough offers connecting them to the right audience. It's all about offers and audience. And when I say that, it's like, are you selling to people who like your kind of art? Where do they hang out? What do they do? And then, are you creating art that you love, that you would do for free? And just make it fun, but be strategic about it. And that's a hard thing too for a lot of artists. They're not thinking strategically or from like a business perspective. I mean, a lot do. There's plenty of successful artists in this world. But for those of you who may be feeling challenged by your momentum or your growth, look at what you're offering and look at the audience you're offering it to. And is it in alignment? And start to really dig in deeper to that. Because it wasn't until I really built some boundaries around how I produce and create that really changed the way that I did business. And I made a lot more money after I went through that exercise of aligning who I am, what I do with the right people. And it didn't happen all at once, but it was something that I'm really proud of. I listened to my intuition and I did that, even if it meant being afraid of
Mhm.
pivoting into maybe a different way of approaching the work, of approaching sales, because I got real sick and tired of bringing art to this art show and that art show and this pop up and that pop up. I mean, it is a lot of work. And I just was like, I don't want to do art shows anymore. I just want to work on projects. And that's what I did. And that's kind of what led me here today, because I haven't had an art show in a very long time. That doesn't mean I wouldn't do a show in the future if it was the right fit. But selling to the customer is really tough. So pivoting my business to be more B2B, that was what really helped me in the long run.
Yeah. And in that pivoting, is that where some more of the speaking came to the foreground? Or like, how did that develop?
No, speaking came after that. So pivoting was probably like happening at the same time, but speaking was something that came later because of the work that I was doing with the art, the messages that I was sharing with joy. That became so much more important than the paintings itself. Speaking became my main focus because I wanted to be talking about joy and art. And I had been to the Americans for the Arts conference here in Nashville. I think it was in 2013 or 14. And I saw artists on stage talking about their art. And I was like, well, that project was like years ago and they're still talking about it. Is that a thing? Is that okay? And I shifted my focus from individual pieces of art to developing projects and then being able to tell stories about those projects, because I wanted to be like those artists at the conference and talk about my art on stage. And that's what I do now. So I just talk about the projects that I have done and the impact they have made, not just on myself, but on community. Because I learned that it was a lot easier to get press if you had an event or a project that was relevant to the community. And I became so hyper focused on community because I wanted to get in the newspapers and in the magazines, and I wanted to be showing how I was adding value to the world around me as an artist. And it just kind of took on a life of its own because since I've started focusing on community, so many doors started opening and I was able to collaborate and partner with so many more people. And that to me was such a fun part of the process too. And I was painting murals and I was impacting students and I was bringing people together to put a paintbrush in their hand so that they could experience the joy of creating without, like, how do I get started? It was like I was helping them get started. And I mean, we painted a mural in downtown Nashville with over 100 community volunteers. And I managed the whole thing. And it was so much fun because it was just the coolest thing. We were on a rooftop. We got to see the skyline. People were in a space they normally wouldn't be in. We were painting, we were listening to music, and it's still there. So that was in 2000. And so I feel kind of like a mural, like a OG muralist before this whole Instagram mural boom that came through. And I'm really proud of that project and all the ones that I've done after that. But bringing people together for community for the purpose of telling story and being able to amplify those stories using PR was such a great fit because it's really about the story that we're creating and the impact that we're trying to share with the rest of the community, and just for people to see that art is happening all around them and it's happening in their neighborhoods and it's something that's accessible to all. And so that's why I got so big into murals, because I wanted art to be accessible for all, not just in a gallery or in a museum. I wanted it to be something that the everyday person could see, appreciate, and feel.
Yeah. Beth, I have to say, as I listen to you relay these stories and experiences, and as I get to know you better, the thing that I'm certainly impressed with is your ability to take action and then go, okay, I'm going to assess what's happening here, what's working, what's not working, and then you pivoting into something that you need to tweak. And all the while it's doing what you feel drawn towards and what lights you up, what brings you joy, but then also being very conscious about the people around you, whether that's whatever the industry or the right people or the right category of people, like you said before, or community, making it about other people, giving them access and creating something that is an invitation for people, as opposed to, I've made a thing. Come look at my thing. Do you want to buy my thing? Me, 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 me. And so I just want to reflect that back to you, that's what I see and hear as I listen to you tell your experiences and stories. And I so appreciate that, because there's also that word strategy in there that you mentioned before, which I think is huge, because it's this self-aware piece and willingness to pivot and be open-handed, and then yet also having strategy to go, if I'm going to do these things, let's make them the most impactful as possible. So that's a long-winded way of saying thank you.
Well, I don't know any other way to do it. I mean, I think community has always been a big part of my life since I was little. I've been surrounded by great communities in church and through my mom's service organization and through school. So, at school, I had a very unique school experience, like public school upbringing. And there weren't like cliques or anything. It's not like your traditional things that you see on TV or whatever. It was very diverse. I was a minority in the school that I attended, and there was so many different types of people and different foods. Like I remember in third grade, we had, parents bring food to school, and it was the most beautiful spread of all these different things like that I had never seen or heard of before. And I just love what we can learn from each other. And I think I learned that early on, the value of how when you bring people together, how much better it is for everyone when we listen to one another and we collaborate with each other, because my experiences aren't their experiences, but when we come together, we can share in those and then decide how we want to work together. And Yeah, I love being part of groups. As you know, I have all kinds
Yes.
of groups that I nurture. And I think that's just a testament to the belief I have that together we are better, and to just keep thinking about how to do that and how to bring people together in a way that feels meaningful, because it has always been that way for me. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine my life without it. Plus, I don't have a husband or kids or anything. So my community is my family. And
Mm.
that's very important to me, because I like to feel like I'm part of something bigger. And
Hmm.
when you are in community with others, you are. And you just have to put yourself out there. And so thank you, Mike, for trusting me to come be a part of what I'm doing. You could see yourself in it and find the value there, because that
Yeah.
takes courage as well.
I remember going and hearing about the meetup that was like last month or so, and this large group of people who gathered in this really creative space locally here. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, maybe I'll recognize a person, one person or two people, maybe, because I did know some people who knew you. So I was like, there's that possibility. But by and large, I was like, I'm in a room full of other creative people and I don't know any of them. And I reverted back to the like when I was a kid, really shy, like wallflower, like, oh boy, but it quickly dissipated because, as you said, when you get people in the room and everyone starts talking and networking and kind of sharing what they're working on, sharing who they are, there was just this sense of true community. And I know that that can be a buzzword these days, but this sense of like, tell me more about that. Like, I really am interested to know more about you and about the work that you do, not simply a means to how can I get something from you, but rather how can I have something for you? And like you said, how can we do something together? That was completely refreshing for me, especially coming from the Northeast where I grew up and lived most of my life, where it's this sense of more competition over community and people holding things very closely to themselves because it's all about them. And if they share something and you get an advantage, you might pass them. And so to come into this environment that was very much more open, very, very giving, people sharing opportunities, people sharing information. It has been so incredibly refreshing. And even you doing the workshop that you did, the last one that I attended with you, talking about live events and giving ideas and talking about how you having to go through this process of contextualizing and learning a language of the industry to be sure that you're speaking the right way to those people. That was tremendously valuable information. And to get to sit in a room like that, that was incredible. What is next for you in that? Like, what do you see happening with that? Or is this just kind of like you're holding it loosely and kind of like whatever happens organically?
You mean speaking?
I mean, like just even community aspect and certainly like the things that you want to do creatively next.
Well, I'm writing a book now. And so that is a huge undertaking. I know
Yes.
it's going to take time, probably a couple years. So I'm just going to be committed to the process and just take it one step at a time. And then, so that's happening. But also community. I mean, I host 2 live events every month in person. So that's quite a lot on top of, speaking engagements and business and work and sitting at the computer and doing all those things.
Yes.
And so I'm so glad that right now I'm available to be present at those. But I hope eventually that I'm speaking enough to where I'm making an impact on communities worldwide and, sharing my story and sharing the work that I do with groups. So I would love to grow in that direction with books, and then also would love to see, having art be a part of that transaction as well. So if you see me speak on stage and you want to purchase my work, that there is an easy, quick way for you to go about that. Right now, I don't have all the pieces of the engine connecting because I stay hyper focused in one area until I feel like it's running well enough to where I can then connect the other area. And so I'm at that point now where I'm wanting to put all the pieces together and have a smooth system. And that means strategy. That means SOPs. That means making sure that you're being efficient with your time and energy. And yeah, it's a lot of work. It truly is, but I wouldn't do it if I didn't absolutely love it or think that we needed it. And as a trauma survivor, knowing that there's so many others out there who've experienced some type of trauma in their life and knowing how healing and self-expression can be, it is my mission in life, my passion to help people see that there is a light on the other side of all the fear and all the shame. That if you are surrounded by ruminating thoughts or negative thinking or low self-worth or things like that, that you can come out of that. It's not an easy path, but there is a path, and self expression is a great way to get started on it. And I truly believe the more we are actively expressing ourselves, that means we're not abandoning ourselves. If we abandon ourselves, that means we're living in lack. And of course, none of the things that we want to see grow are going to thrive in an environment like that. So we have to create an environment around our lives that's conducive to growing, and that's all I want to be able to do is show people that it's possible and teach them how to do it and give them some tools and then help them get started. And so I've done that through coaching, I've done that through speaking, I've done that through workshops and classes. Like this is all I'm here to do. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
going to do. Now, later down the road, like say I work with a big corporate partner and they want a mural in their space or they want some type of installation and then we do a big talk, we have a whole to do. Like I would love that sort of thing as well. So the offers that I present to the hospitality industry give them that opportunity to see how they can use me in multiple ways beyond just a speaker on stage, but doing some on-site engagement or doing artwork and their attendees with workshops where people are connecting. There's so many ways that I love to lead groups and to show people what's possible, that we're just going to keep building on that.
Yeah.
And so it's a process of making art, creating new talks, creating new experiences. I had a friend the other night was like, I want you to paint on stage and I want to see you paint and then speak. And what would that look like? And I don't know. Well, let's just kind of see. And of course, I always default to what does my spirit say? What is my guidance telling me? Is this the next right thing to do? I know like we all want everything to happen all at once, but that's never really truly the path. It always happens a little bit at a time. And so just being patient and
Yeah.
grounding myself in that patience that whatever is to come will come when it's ready, and showing up, being present, keep doing the work, keep following the guidance. I mean, I don't know what else I can do beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's amazing. And I think you being very transparent with your journey as you're doing it is also extremely helpful and encouraging to people. I know it's encouraged me because oftentimes it's easy for people to get the slice of life from somebody and think, oh, well, they've got everything all figured out and I'm so far from where they are. And look, they don't have the same, trials and tribulations that I do, and et cetera, et cetera. And so I think when you show up more transparent, it dispels all that stuff and it evens the playing ground and says, you know what? Yeah, like I'm living my journey and I'm engaging with myself and trying to figure this out. And there are things that you're going to learn from it, but everybody has to do their own journey. And there are going to be contexts for someone else that may be right for them, but it's wrong for you and vice versa. And I think it's just showing up, engaging with that and figuring out those next steps, like you said, that's key because that keeps us going. And the beautiful thing about creativity is that we never run out of it. Like we never get to the bottom. There's always something else that we can make and do. And that's a beautiful life, right?
It truly is. And when you're able to share your fears and your shame and help people feel like they're not alone, that is a beautiful interaction, because what you're doing is you're setting people free. You're letting them see that it's not just their experience, that is something we all go through. And that helps us feel less alone. And when we feel connected and like we are in a space where we belong or that we feel understood, that is when we can start to heal. So yeah, share all the yucky stuff. I
Yeah.
do. And I'm
Yep.
like,
I
I
do
don't
too.
care. I don't live in shame anymore. I refuse to. Yeah, of course, God's always doing work on me with humility and I'm grateful for that. And so share all the experiences, because nothing is ever perfect. No one has it all figured out. It's not an easy road for most, especially those who are doing things that you want to be doing. Like, we got to understand there's a lot of work behind all of this is 18 years of my life. I mean, that's a lot of years. I tell my intern, I'm like her mentor, I'm like, I have 20 years experience on you. So be gentle on yourself for maybe not knowing everything at this point.
Right.
And, I try to teach her all the things that I have learned as a way to empower her to continue to grow in the direction that she wants to. And I love that I can do that now. It's hard to believe that it's been that long, because it's gone
Right.
by in a flash.
Yes, I hear you. Oh goodness. Well, I have to say, your joy is evident in all the things you do, and even as you come into a space and people yell out your name, they're smiling. Everyone is always happy to see you, and so I think that is a testimony to who you are and the work that you do. So thank you for that. I look forward to more opportunities, getting in the room with you and the communities that you host. So personally, I'm just very appreciative, and I'm also appreciative that you are on the show today, sharing your experiences, encouraging others who are listening, wherever they're listening from today. As we kind of wrap things up, where can people go to find you? How can they follow you? Like, lay some links or some places on us.
Well, you all can just follow me online. I'm on all the socials, and I'm at Beth English, BETHINGLISH. My last name is spelled with an I, so that is confusing for a lot of people. And so I'm pretty active on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. Yeah, so that's where you can find me playing the most.
Awesome. Okay. I'll be sure to put those in the show notes so people can click and easily follow you and get more of you in their life, some of that joy spilling over to them. That's awesome.
And I have over 100 episodes about art on my YouTube. So you can go back and watch those. I did those during the pandemic with a friend, Sergio Gomez, who's an artist. He was in Chicago, but now he's in Miami. And we have a lot of really practical videos about that. So go check out my YouTube, and my website's bethenglish.com. There's links to all those places there. And you can Google me and read all about things about me. I mean, I'm on the internet for a reason, So
Exactly.
you can find me. It's not hard.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for today. And I just wish you all the best in all the things that you do, and can't wait to hang out with you in person again very shortly.
Thank you. I look forward to that too. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening today. I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe, leave a rating and a review. It really helps this podcast be seen and heard by others.